Bill Gaither is more than just a musician, he is a living symbol of gospel music's power to touch the heart and soul. For decades, he created songs and performances that brought comfort, encouragement, and faith to millions of people around the world. His voice carried not only music but also a spiritual message that inspired believers of all ages. Songs like "Because He Lives" and "He Touched Me" became anthems for those searching for hope in difficult times. Through his concerts, recordings, and the famous Gaither Homecoming series, Bill became one of the most recognized and loved figures in gospel music history. Yet, behind his wide smile and uplifting stage presence lies a life filled with pain, loss, and challenges that tested both his body and spirit. Like many great artists, the public saw only the polished side of his career, the bright lights, the applause, and the joy of music. But behind the scenes, Bill faced health struggles, personal heartbreaks, and the devastating deaths of those closest to him. His journey shows us that even legends are human, and even faith-filled lives are touched by sorrow. When Bill Gaither spoke about songwriting, he often described it as a very personal and lonely process. In one interview, he reflected on how he would wake up each morning, filled with the quiet excitement of sitting down later in the day to write. Even in his later years, he found joy in this simple but powerful act. To him, songwriting was not just a career, it was a calling. However, what many fans did not see was the pain and struggles that came alongside the music. Gaither dealt with health scares, mobility challenges, and the ongoing stress of keeping up with the demands of a long career. His public smile sometimes hid private battles. He admitted openly that maintaining strength in his body was not easy as he grew older. He tried to walk 10,000 steps a day, determined to keep moving even as fatigue made it harder. Fans began noticing changes in his stage energy, but Gaither kept pushing forward. His determination to give people hope through music often came at the cost of his own health. Beyond physical struggles, there were family tensions, career challenges, and the heartbreaking moments of saying goodbye to friends who had walked beside him for decades. By 2025, Bill Gaither was 87 years old, still performing and bringing joy to his audiences. But during what was supposed to be another celebration of faith at a Gaither Homecoming concert, tragedy struck. In front of thousands of fans, Gaither suddenly collapsed on stage. The crowd was shocked, and medical staff rushed to save him. Though he survived the incident, it became a clear sign that his body could no longer keep up with the demands of live touring. Soon after, Gaither released an emotional statement announcing his retirement from public performances. He said with a heavy heart that it was time to step away from the stage and focus on what mattered most, his health and his family. For many fans, this moment was heartbreaking. It was the end of an era in gospel music. Still, Gaither made it clear that he would continue to write songs, mentor young gospel singers, and share his wisdom in ways that did not demand the physical strain of constant travel. His retirement marked a bittersweet moment. Fans mourned the loss of his live performances but found comfort in knowing that his music and influence would continue. The collapse was more than a health scare, it was the moment that forever changed his career and forced him to slow down after decades of tireless dedication. Bill Gaither's journey of loss began long before his own health challenges. One of the most devastating blows came in 2001 when his brother, Daniel Joseph "Danny" Gaither, passed away. Danny was more than just Bill's sibling, he was a vital part of the Bill Gaither Trio, formed in the 1950s with their sister Mary, and, together, they recorded classics that shaped gospel music and inspired generations. Danny's smooth tenor voice added warmth and beauty to the trio's harmonies. But in the early 1990s, Danny began suffering from serious vocal issues, forcing him to step back from full-time performances. Later, he was diagnosed with lymphoma, a battle he fought bravely for 5 years. On April 6, 2001, at the age of 62, Danny passed away, leaving a deep wound in Bill's heart. Losing a brother who had stood beside him since the beginning of his music journey was not just a personal loss but also the loss of a partner in the mission of spreading faith through music. For Bill, Danny's death was a reminder that life is fragile and that even the strongest bonds are not immune to time and illness. Not long after losing his brother, Bill Gaither faced another painful farewell. Jake Hess, the legendary gospel singer and a personal hero to Bill, died in 2004 after suffering a heart attack. Jake had been one of the biggest influences on Gaither's career. Long before they ever shared a stage, Gaither admired Hess's talent and presence. Eventually, their friendship grew through countless collaborations in concerts and homecoming events. Hess's passing at the age of 76 marked the end of an era and left Gaither grieving yet another close companion in faith and music. Fans of the Gaither homecoming concerts remember Hess for his powerful voice and his ability to lift spirits with every performance. For Gaither, losing Hess was not just about saying goodbye to a friend, but about watching a piece of gospel history fade away. The bond they shared was more than professional, it was rooted in mutual respect, love for gospel traditions, and the joy of spreading hope through song. Hess's death added another layer of sorrow to Gaither's life, showing how even great musical families must face painful goodbyes. The following year, in 2005, Gaither faced yet another devastating loss with the passing of George Younce. George was the legendary bass singer of the Cathedral Quartet and later performed with Gaither and the Old Friends Quartet. His deep, resonant voice was unforgettable and added a richness to gospel harmonies that fans adored. Unfortunately, George's health began to decline in the late 1990s as he battled kidney failure and heart disease. Despite his health struggles, he continued to perform whenever possible, showing the same determination and faith that defines so many of Gaither's companions. In April 2005, George passed away at the age of 75, leaving behind a legacy that would inspire singers for years to come. For Gaither, this was another painful chapter of loss. One by one, the friends and colleagues who had stood beside him in his mission of sharing gospel music were leaving this world. Each death left a gap not only in his personal life but also in the larger gospel music community. Losing George Younce reminded Gaither of how quickly time passes and how fragile even the strongest voices can be. Perhaps the most shocking loss of all came in 2006 with the sudden death of Anthony Berger, a beloved pianist and longtime Gaither collaborator. Anthony's story was one of resilience and inspiration. As a child, he suffered severe burns that left him in pain, but he overcame these challenges to become one of gospel music's most celebrated pianists. His energy and talent made him a central figure in more than 65 homecoming recordings and countless concerts. Fans loved watching him bring songs to life with his incredible skill and passion. But in February 2006, tragedy struck during a Gaither gospel cruise in the Caribbean. While performing on stage, Anthony suddenly collapsed mid-song. Despite efforts to save him, he died of a massive heart attack at just 44 years old. His death shocked the gospel music world and devastated Gaither personally. Anthony was not only a colleague but a dear friend whose youthful energy brought joy to every performance. The loss of such a talented and vibrant musician at a young age was one of the hardest blows Gaither ever faced. Through all these heartbreaking losses and personal health struggles, Bill Gaither's faith remained the foundation of his life. He often spoke about loyalty, family, and the importance of holding on to faith even in the darkest times. When reflecting on his relationships with his musical circle, he compared it to family, saying that no matter what tensions arise, your brother is still your brother, your sister is still your sister. This sense of loyalty helped him survive the storms of life. Despite the pain, Gaither never lost his vision of music as a tool for healing and hope. Even after retirement, he continued mentoring young artists and writing songs that touched the soul. The tragedies that marked his journey did not silence him, they reshaped him into someone who understood even more deeply the power of music to bring comfort. His legacy is not just found in albums or sold-out concerts, but in the countless lives he inspired to keep believing, keep hoping, and keep singing. Bill Gaither's story is one of triumph and tragedy, joy and sorrow, strength and weakness. Behind his smiling face was a man who endured the painful realities of aging, health struggles, and heartbreaking losses of those closest to him. Yet, through it all, he never abandoned his mission of spreading hope through music. His retirement marked the end of one chapter, but his influence will never fade. The songs he wrote, the lives he touched, and the community he built through the Gaither Homecoming series will continue to inspire future generations. His story reminds us that even legends face trials, but it is faith, resilience, and love that carry them through. Bill Gaither may have stepped off the stage, but his music will always echo in churches, homes, and hearts around the world. His life proves that while tragedy is real, so is hope, and it is that hope that defines his true legacy. When Bill Gaither announced his retirement after his health scare in 2025, the outpouring of love from fans and fellow gospel musicians was overwhelming. Messages of encouragement flooded social media, letters poured in, and countless churches across the country dedicated special songs and prayers to him. Fans who had attended his concerts for decades spoke about how his music had carried them through the hardest times in life, loss, sickness, and moments of doubt. Many shared stories of playing his songs at funerals, weddings, or during sleepless nights when they needed strength. For them, Gaither was not just a singer or songwriter, he was a companion in faith. The gospel community also stood firmly behind him, calling him a legend whose work would never be forgotten. David Phelps, one of the most celebrated voices of the Gaither Vocal Band, called him a true father figure in gospel music and praised him for mentoring younger generations with love and patience. This wave of love showed that while Gaither was stepping away from the stage, his presence in people's hearts was as strong as ever. It was proof that the impact of his music stretched far beyond sold-out concerts. It had become part of people's spiritual journeys, woven into their most personal memories. For Gaither, this support was a reminder that even though his performing days were behind him, the mission he began decades ago was still alive and growing in the voices of those he inspired. Even after leaving the stage, Gaither remained deeply involved in teaching, mentoring, and guiding the future of gospel music. From his home, he continued writing songs and encouraging young artists who dreamed of carrying the torch forward. Many aspiring singers have spoken about the wisdom they received from Gaither, not just about music but about life, humility, and faith. His ability to turn simple words into powerful lyrics made him not only a great songwriter but also a great teacher. He often told younger musicians that music was more than entertainment, it was a ministry, a way to bring healing and hope to a broken world. His Gaither Homecoming series became more than just concerts, it was a training ground where old and young singers came together to learn from each other. This created a unique sense of family within gospel music that continues today. His lessons went beyond technical skills, they were about the heart of the message. Even as new generations rise, Gaither's songs remain timeless. They continue to be sung in churches, choirs, and living rooms across the world. His influence has created a ripple effect, ensuring that his spirit will live on in every hymn, every performance, and every voice lifted in praise. Bill Gaither's story, though marked by tragedy and loss, ultimately shines as a story of endurance, faith, and everlasting impact. His legacy reminds us that while a performer may one day leave the stage, the music they create, and the lives they touch, will never fade away. Throughout all the heartbreaks and health struggles, one thing remained constant in Bill Gaither's life, his unshakable faith. For him, faith was not something to be spoken of only on Sundays or during concerts, it was a daily guide that helped him survive moments of despair. When his brother Danny died, when Jake Hess and George Younce passed away, and when Anthony Berger collapsed on stage in front of him, it would have been easy for Gaither to question why so much loss surrounded him. Yet, instead of allowing grief to consume him, he leaned even more on God's promises. In interviews, Gaither often spoke about how faith is not about avoiding pain but finding meaning in it. He described loss as something that can break you or shape you, and for him, it always shaped him into someone stronger, more compassionate, and more determined to spread hope. His songs reflected this outlook, lyrics that reminded listeners that even in the darkest nights, light still shines. For millions of fans, Gaither's faith became a testimony in itself. They did not just see a man who wrote beautiful songs, they saw someone who lived his beliefs, who kept standing even when life tried to bring him down. This authenticity is one of the reasons he remained beloved by so many. Fans trusted his words because they knew they came from lived experience, not just from a stage performance. Gaither's example reminds us that true faith is not about perfection but about perseverance. His life stands as proof that no amount of tragedy can silence a heart that continues to believe. While Bill Gaither is often celebrated within American gospel music, the influence of his work has spread far beyond U.S. borders. His Gaither Homecoming concerts were broadcast in dozens of countries, introducing people across the world to Southern gospel traditions. Choirs in Africa, Europe, Asia, and South America have performed his songs, translating them into their own languages while keeping the message alive. Tracks like Because He Lives became more than just music, they became universal prayers of hope sung in countless churches worldwide. For many international fans, Gaither's music became their first connection to gospel traditions, creating bridges between cultures through shared faith. Even in countries where gospel music was not widely known, his recordings reached underground churches and private gatherings, offering encouragement to believers who sometimes risked their safety to sing songs of faith. In this way, Gaither's legacy grew into something larger than himself. He was no longer just a man from Indiana writing simple songs. He became part of a global spiritual movement that outlived individual concerts or performances. His lyrics continue to be quoted in sermons, sung in hospital rooms, and remembered at gravesides, proving that music truly has the power to transcend generations and borders. Even as Gaither stepped away from the stage, his songs remained alive, like seeds planted long ago that continue to bloom in new places. This global influence guarantees that his story, though touched by tragedy, will always be remembered as one of the most powerful testimonies in gospel music history.